Hi,
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
All right, my friends. Once again, it's time to get our talk on. This morning, talk with me, your host, J. Stan McCauley, along with the champions of talk. Dr. Maya Bowen's in the house. Kasiki is in the house, along with a special guest joining us in a few minutes here. Good morning there, Kasiki. How have you been doing since we were last together?
Stan, I've been doing great, man. And just good morning to all our listeners and viewers. I'm so happy you're tuning in with us today. And you're correct. We have a phenomenal guest, a folk hero to some. And I can't wait to bring him on. So good morning, everyone.
All right. We got Dr. Bowen also in the house here. Dr. Bowen, how you doing?
Good morning. Happy Black History Month. We crossed over into February pretty swiftly. And, it may be recognized as 1 month, but I woke up this morning black just the same way that I did in days past. So to all that are celebrating this month, may you have a prosperous and productive one.
All right. So you went to bed black, you woke up black.
Absolutely.
Were you black in January, or is it just for
Absolutely.
February? Okay,
and I'm making Black history every single day because of it.
that's what I'm talking about. That's beautiful. Yes.
All right. So black, yeah. Woke up black, went to sleep black.
Yep. And every day.
And looking forward to being black tomorrow.
Right, I'll be black tomorrow.
Yes.
I'm looking forward to that. That's what I'm saying. I'm looking forward to that.
Hello. Yes.
That's funny. All right. A lot of things going on, of course, here in the capital city and around the world. But, of course, we live right here. The greatest city on earth. At least that's what I call it. You take you wherever you go. So wherever you are should be great.
Absolutely.
Because you're there, right?
Absolutely.
But let's jump right into the conversation. We've got a special guest this morning. And so we always, as a tradition here, let the person who invited the guest introduce the guest. So, Kasiki.
Well, it's my pleasure to introduce an esteemed elder and leader and folk hero to me, the modern day revolutionary Cornell Lewis. Welcome, Cornell. Good morning.
Thank you.
How are things, brother?
Things are going okay. I just hope I can live up to all of those lofty things that you just said about me.
Well, I believe him, and that's good enough for me.
Okay, okay.
I know you have your naysayers, but we're not worrying about them.
Oh, no. Anybody who is doing something for their people or for the community, they're going to have naysayers and people that I call the Greek chorus. They're off in the distance, they're chirping, but they never get involved in the play.
Very well stated, Cornell. Now, Cornell, tell us a little bit about your self-defense organization.
The Self-Defense Brigade is something I started a few years ago. And basically what we do is now.
And what was that? What was that in response to, Cornell?
The Self-Defense Brigade was in response to some things that were going on in Hartford at the time and in Connecticut. I noticed that people would go out to rallies and events, and then they would be challenged by people intent on disrupting. So I decided to put something together so that when people went out on rallies or events, they would have some form of protection. Also, I wanted an organization that would do things like feed the people and patrol the community in high crime areas, and that's what we did.
That's outstanding work. Thank you so much for that. You know, the regular folk in the community, and I speak for them, we're all very grateful to have you, you know, amongst us. Cornell, can you talk a little bit about some of the interventions that you've conducted in the past?
Well, in the past, we went out to the suburbs and held forums out there and pointed fingers at the suburbs for being complicit in the drug trade in Hartford. For some time, the newspapers and the other media used to always talk about the drug problem in Hartford. But when we looked at the data, we found out that more crack and heroin was being purchased by people in Glastonbury, Meriden, Greenwich, and other places in Avon, and they would always go back to their community and leave our community having to deal with violence and other things. So once we got the data, we started, at least I started saying that the suburbs were complicit in creating a criminal drug empire, especially in the North End, as a result of them buying $400 or $500 worth of crack for the weekend or heroin and places and things like that. So we started going out to the suburbs on Saturdays, saying at 10 o'clock in the morning, I would take 15, 20 people. We would go in a van, borrowed from a church, and we would use megaphones and say, don't buy drugs in Hartford. We would wake up people who had been arrested in Hartford for buying drugs and just walk through their neighborhood without pointing them out. That got national headlines and brought down a lot of condemnation upon me and other people for going out to the suburbs. But I said, and I still maintain, that the suburbs played a hand in fueling the drug problem in Hartford, and if Hartford residents of color were going to be put on blast, then we needed to put on blast the people who were coming from the suburbs.
So then, fair to say, because this is what I always say, that Hartford doesn't have a drug problem. Simsbury has a drug problem. West Hartford has a drug problem. Avon has a drug problem. You know, and Hartford could no more support a drug trade than the employees of Stop and Shop could support Stop and Shop. You know, people come there and purchase the drugs. People come to Hartford, buy drugs. Doctor folk driving up, leaving from the hospital, and all kinds of other folk, professionals leaving out of Hartford with drugs, and trading guns for drugs, trading cars for drugs, all kinds of stuff. And then they want to make it seem like Hartford has a problem. The way it's been, redlined and sanctioned off, Hartford is the place where you can purchase your drugs, but we don't really have a drug problem. It's the suburbanites that have a drug problem. Is that a fair statement, or is that my pushing the envelope?
Well, to a degree, yeah, because I would watch the suburbanites come into Hartford as if it was their community and buy drugs and create traffic jams on the street. And they would be in all black and Latino and Latina communities. And there was nobody that looked like them in that community. But yet they felt that they were entitled to come in. And we all know that if we go out to Avon and Greenwich and do something like that, there's going to be a problem. So I agree with you that the suburbs, they do have a drug problem. So we went out and put something together called the Urban Suburban Dialogue, in which we use data and documented proof to show that suburbanites were buying drugs in large numbers. So what we did was we took down the license plate numbers of all the cars that came into the community, especially around Bellevue Street and some other places, Garden Street. And then we took video footage and we held forums in Avon and other places and showed people on screen exactly who was buying the drugs. To a large degree, as my English teacher would say, incontrovertible evidence that could not be refuted.
Well, I have to agree with both of you, because the idea that these suburbanites would come into the city and purchase drugs in an amount that the local residents couldn't afford,
yes,
makes that individual, puts him on a different scale, so he can do even more harm to the community than he's already doing on a small scale. So these suburbanites they're creating like these drug moguls in our midst, So I definitely agree with that.
And that's exactly what I said, and that's what I brought up. And it gained some traction in the suburban community. A lot of people were hosting myself and other activists in the suburbs to get that message out. And one thing that really brought it to the forefront is some white young men in their 20s, I think, purchased some heroin on Whitney Street. And they went back to their idyllic, community. I think it was called Devonwood. Multi-million-dollar homes, I think it is. And they were going back that way, but one of them ran into a tree and killed himself and injured other people because he was high. But these kids from Devonwood would wait for their parents to go on trips to Europe or wherever they went, and then they would have these parties in this guarded, rich, super white, rich community, and they would come to Hartford to buy drugs, and they would buy tons of drugs, and they would party all weekend and everything else. But when that boy wrapped that car around that tree, and it was found out that he purchased drugs in Hartford and was taking them back to one of those parties, that opened up a lot of people's eyes.
That's incredible, man. That and the way that I see this, right, the way that I'm processing this is that although there were some angry white people that you would expose their community, there were some that were intelligent enough to understand that you were creating a public service for them. But in contrast to our community, they don't accept that as a public service. They call it other things, and that's they call
it other things. You're right.
Snitching or whatever. Yeah, but the level of ignorance that our people process information like that sometimes is just beyond it's unintelligible, man.
Well, it's interesting because you're right. The people in the suburbs actually hosted me at their spacious homes, and they allowed me to speak at the church in Avon that Martin Luther King spoke at when he was in Hartford. In that area, and they allowed me to talk about the very things that we're talking about. So they process the information in such a way as to help me
in a healthy way.
Yeah, to help me get it the process out. The newspapers across the country said this, big headlines. This is the first time that urban people have ever gone into the suburbs to accuse them of fueling a drug empire, usually people point to the urban community, but this is the first time that we noticed that somebody has taken data, gone out to the suburbs to accuse them of something. And like you said, the evidence was there, the arrest records were there, and the people in the suburbs processed it one way, and some people vilified me, but the people in the urban communities, they were grateful, a lot of them, for us, trying to stamp out that particular menace to the community. But some of them did process the information a certain way and vilified me and put terms on me like snitching and things that, just didn't make sense to me.
Dr. Bowen?
Yes,
Oh.
yes. I had to unmute myself. My apologies. Just taking it a step back in regards to the story you were telling. I got some mixed signals going on in terms of identifying whether or not the young man who lost his life by having a car accident. Did you state that he was 22? Because I did hear you refer to him as boy. So was he under
Well,
18?
he's a young man. I said boy, but yeah. He is a teen.
I only bring that out from the perspective that when it is that we're described to be over 18, we are in that adult mode, right? And then if we're being demeaned, not that you were trying to demean him, but when we're being demeaned based on our culture, the term boy is often brought up. But it's a sad state of affairs, and it's supply and demand. If it is that the original supply wasn't coming in from the suburban communities as well, and then being dropped off into our urban communities, and then the suburbanites coming in to purchase what whoever had the leeway to bring in initially, then this would actually hopefully cease and desist. But it's tragic all the way around. There are no winners in this.
Well, I think to some degree there were some winners, because I think the suburbanites, the scales fell from their eyes like Paul on the road to Damascus. Once we showed them the information and pointed out to them in no uncertain terms they were not welcome in our community, number one, because if they were coming to buy drugs, they were not welcome. And number two, they had the unmitigated gall, the temerity to come into black and brown neighborhoods. And then when we asked them what they were doing and why they were buying drugs, they got insulted. And so we made it clear, this is our community. We don't want you here. Number two, we can't come in your community and do that. And number three, you are complicit in creating a criminal empire, in the city in which we are always vilified. So I think there were winners, and it energized the people and gave them something to do. And I'll be quite honest, to go out into white-topia and proclaim a message liberated a lot of people. And I noticed when we first did it, State Representative Kenny Green at the time and some other people joined in with us as we were marching up and down the street, megaphones at 10 o'clock in the morning on Saturday, saying don't buy drugs in Hartford. So I think it raised awareness on a number of levels and gave people an opportunity to get involved in a social movement to free what I call oppressors, to free ourselves from oppressors, because I define an oppressor as someone who comes into a nation, a neighborhood, an area, takes out resources, and leaves the area in worse shape than what they found it. And that is what white suburbanites were doing, and to a large degree, that is what the drug dealers were doing in Hartford by selling drugs and allowing the community to be ravaged.
One thing that because when you were talking about being labeled as snitch, and Kasiki alluded to it as well, it would seem to me that the largest voice in that arena would be those who are involved in the criminal enterprise of dealing in drugs. Because I remember when you were out there, your life was threatened on multiple occasions.
Not only was it threatened, they actually put a contract on my life.
I remember. And it's quite an undertaking to take a bold stand like that. But the more our community does that, the more we take control of our community. Because as I see it, communities are self-sustaining, self-educating, and self-policing. And when we started the conversation off, Kasiki was asking you about the defense. Lee, we're gonna blow through this break. The defense brigade.
Yes, self-defense brigade. Yes.
And when you're out in the, out on the front lines, if you will, and advocating and moving agendas forward for the good of the whole, there will always be agitators. But I also believe that our community needs to be, defended, just period. And I think that's one thing that our community doesn't really have that it should have. I mean, some people take issue with that because, I think the primary person responsible for your safety is yourself, your community, and the people who love around you. So, but there are other forces that when you come to a place where you're protecting yourself, particularly if you're a person with skin that's colored brown, you're somehow, militant or uprising or something like that. But you're responsible for protecting yourself, not someone else. It's good if there's someone else there, but the primary person responsible for your welfare is yourself. And I believe communities need to know how to defend themselves.
Well, I'm glad you brought that up, because one of the things the Self-Defense Brigade does is we provide legal, armed, Second Amendment rights protection for rallies. Several years ago, counter-protesters, mostly whites, had a habit of attacking peaceful protesters. So the Self-Defense Brigade got together with some other groups. We walked people through a process, helped them to get their gun permits, and now when we go to rallies, we have more than a dozen people legally armed protecting the marches. And the attacks by groups have ceased. The Proud Boys showed up at a rally we had back in April at the state capitol. I went up to them, had a talk with them, and said they could watch and do whatever they wanted to, but if they started trouble and attacked us, we were going to defend ourselves. And I told the state and the Capitol Police that if they didn't do their job, we would do our job. And we were legally armed. The Proud Boys stayed right where they were, and I said, "Do you understand me?" They said, "Yes." No problem. So I think we need to, yes, protect ourselves, arm ourselves, and not be victims. The term victim is defined as someone who suffers from an action or an event. Well, there were actions that were perpetrated against us as people in the past by white supremacy. There were acts, but that event in the past doesn't have to continue into the future. Mm-hmm. It doesn't have to be boisterous. It doesn't have to be threatening. All we have to do is make sure that we can protect ourselves. And the Self-Defense Brigade trains people in hand-to-hand combat and other types of defense. And so every time we go out, everybody's trained in hand-to-hand combat that's with us, and a lot of the people are legally armed. And that is how we travel, and we believe that we need to be like that. Now, like you said, there are some people who disagree with us. But if I read history correctly, the only defense we had in the past against white supremacy and some of the other evils that afflict us from other groups was ourselves. We knew the dominant society was not going to protect us. I call that level of defense old God. That's what we brought with us from Africa or wherever we came from in the diaspora. Since we have been in America, we have accepted other gods that allow us to look upon the higher nature of our opponents. But if people keep beating you, keep killing you, keep diminishing your character, you have to ask yourself, do they have a morality? And if they do have a morality, or if they do have some kind of higher purpose, or as my theological teacher used to say, the imago Dei, or the image of God in them, then where is it? Because they keep doing the same thing. So I say that if we can't depend on the government to protect us, or the police, or the God that we have accepted since we've been in this country as people from the diaspora, then it's time to get rid of that which we think can protect us and create something that we know can protect us. And the Self-Defense Brigade has done just that. We have weekly and bi-weekly trainings in self-defense, hand-to-hand combat, and we get more and more people to get their gun permits and join us to make sure that we are protected when we're out in the community advocating for racial justice.
So, Cornell, first of all, I want to say congratulations, because your response is very Malcolm X-like. And it's simply a prepared response. You're prepared in case something happens. And if nothing happens, then nothing happens.
Nothing happens, right?
Right. So, but you are prepared to defend selves by any means necessary.
As one should.
Well, what we do is this. All we do when we go out on a rally is, or we go somewhere, we tell the opposing forces we don't want any trouble. That's clear. But we say, if you start something or you attack us in the name of all that's holy, we're going to defend ourselves. So now the onus is on the oppressor. And we've had problems with people in Ansonia and other places that have come out, Nazis, skinheads, white supremacists, and we tell them plainly what our position is. We don't holler, we're not screaming, we're not going back and forth, we're silent, vigilant, but make no mistake, if you attack us, we will defend ourselves, and then we'll just let the lawyers figure out the rest.
That's an incredible response, Cornell. Thank you for that. Now, I want to change gears a little bit, brother.
Go ahead.
And I want to bring us up to speed on what is the issue that you're working, that the Self-Defense Brigade is working on currently, right now.
We're working on a couple of issues. One is in Suffield, some black and brown students at the Suffield High School, I think between 13, 14, 15, 16, put together a Black Wall Street exhibit for Black History Month, and the school canceled it a month before, 3 weeks before the thing was supposed to happen. The young
Wow.
people got the money together. They got the musicians, the speakers, and the superintendent and the principal put the kibosh on it. We demonstrated at Suffield High School in protest. We had dialogue with superintendent. We had people call in to voice their displeasure, and we got the superintendent and the principal to issue a mea culpa. You know, they fell on their sword and apologized profusely about canceling the event. But they said they felt as if it caught them off guard, the rapid nature by which the kids put this together. And they felt it needed more supervision. However, we feel that some of the parents at Suffield High School, of the young people, actually thought teaching about Black Wall Street, what happened in Oklahoma, Tulsa, Oklahoma, when the black community was bombed from the air by airplane. We feel that some of the parents of the white students looked upon this as critical race theory, and they put pressure on the principal to and the superintendent to cancel it. So we're working on that to make sure they understand that we were displeased. Now, we had a small rally up there. They thought I was coming along with some more black and brown people, but what the Self-Defense Brigade did was we sent white females who work with us, who in millennials in their 40s and 50s, up to the school. The police were looking for black and brown people. They had the street blocked off with barricades. They had yellow tape up, but they only saw white females walking toward the school, so they took everything down. And then the white females who worked with us took out the megaphones and the signs and started protesting, which caught them totally off guard. That's one thing. And then we're working on some other things up in a place called Shelton, where the police handled a black man in his home disrespectfully.
So as an educator, I've got a lot of questions, but my one main question is, why wouldn't the superintendent and the principal put into writing whether or not they would have made the same type of decision if the group of students was not black, right?
Well,
So
yes.
so that will provide us with some substantiation of their actions that they took. CRT in and of itself is really something that gets addressed in a legal environment for law students. So the fact of the matter is that black people are a part of American history, and why wouldn't we tell
Yes.
the full history of a country that we had almost 100% in building with our hands without pay?
Yes. I agree with you. What happened was there were some documents passed to the mother of one of the students, a family of color, documents from the school that somehow or another gave approval to what was being planned by the students. But what happened was the students put the thing together so rapidly and got so much support from the community and raised money for the event because it was theirs and they were proud of it. And then that is when the superintendent turned around and somehow or another tried to say that what was put in the original documents, which the mother kept, was not what was intended, which made no sense to me. So in other words, they were doing a linguistic two-step to try to get out of the situation.
They shuffle words up like they're playing with a deck of cards.
Well, here's the thing that's most notable to me. right? That no matter how much they apologized, the fact remains that the activity did not go on. So
That's correct.
those are all false apologies because all they had to do is,
That's what I said.
we made a
Yes.
mistake. We're going to have this thing because the community, that was the main reason, what you said, Cornell, the community supported it. That was the main reason why the superintendent and the principal, if either one had a half a brain between them, right, then they would have said, this is a good thing for us. But
Yes.
instead, they want to continue to push that racism, that white supremacy, that white privilege, and we're not going for that. Why do those people still have a job?
Well, they're feeling the heat because not only did we send people to protest at the school, they had a board of education meeting, and I sent people up there, and they protested inside and asked pointed questions respectfully. And so the principal and the superintendent said they will support something like this in the future in 2024.
No,
So
we need
in
to have
other
that
words,
now. We
so
want
in
that
other
now.
words, they don't want it to happen in 2023.
They don't
We need
want
to
it.
push
They
for
don't.
that.
They don't want it to happen
Period.
at all. Let's
Right.
take a short break. We'll be
Yes.
right back. Don't go anywhere. Stick and stay. Morning Talk. Kasiki is here. We've got Dr. Bowen and joining us, our special guest, Cornell Lewis. Don't go anywhere. We'll be right back. Cornell Williams.
Yes. Oh, I thought somebody called me.
Lewis.
I thought I
Yeah.
heard somebody call my name.
I called your name, but I thought I called you out your name. I'll be all right. It's early and I haven't gone to sleep yet.
Call them the right name.
All right.
That's
We'll,
all
we'll
right.
be right back. Stick and stay.
Okay.
Put your seatbelt on.
HPU. I help families de Universidade de Harvard Community. Estou muito feliz em participar. É muito importante engajamento deles padres e madres nas escolas de Hartford com seus ninhos, my children. I love helping family e HPU. Thank you. Gracias. Obrigado.
Every bad political decision is made by a politician elected to office. So if you think your vote doesn't matter, just remember this. There are people sitting with politicians in a back room making deals about your future, making policies about your children, making decisions about your neighborhood. To them, you are just a vote. You are not their charity. You are not their cause. You are just a vote. Elections have consequences, and if you don't vote, you are actually voting to keep these people in power to work against you. Now, more than ever, you need to make your vote count. Declare your independence from the plantation of party politics and free your political mind.
Hi,
My name's J.C. McCauley.
I'm Naisha McCauley, and you're watching AccessTV.org.
Oh, yeah. All right, welcome back. Morning Talk. We're here every morning, 8 o'clock, every evening at 8. So you can join us twice a day at 8 and 8, a.m. and p.m. And join in on the conversation. Share it with family, friends, and foe. That way you keep everybody in the know. What else is on your mind there, Kasiki?
Well, Cornell.
Yes.
I just want to say that I want to thank you for the incredible work that you and the people that you work with are doing. I have to admit that I'm very happy that you have these wonderful white allies, because they are paramount to the success of our movement. When you have real allies like that, they make our success happen quicker. It's going to happen anyway. But the thing that I want to question, and not to you, but to the audience, to our listeners and our viewers, why are people like that working with our children? The moment those people decided that they were not going to have that event, they should have lost their job on the spot. Right? Because they had a chance to say, we made a mistake. This is great. Let's have it. Let's celebrate. And they turn around and come up. But that's another strategy that white people use, is another strategy of racism and white privilege. I've experienced that. Where they come over and they'll say, oh, don't worry about it, it's going to be all right. That's the kind of support you can expect. That's what they did. Oh, don't worry about it, we'll have it next year. But next year they'll have another excuse.
Yeah. Well, what they did was, once they found out that they had stirred a hornet's nest, they tried to placate us with what my English teacher would call pious platitudes. But I wasn't going for it. And so I listened to their apology and listened to their excuses, but I told them, people make mistakes or people do things intentionally and they apologize, but there are still consequences to your actions that you have to pay for. I said, so therefore, since you did not want Black History Month at your school, I said, we're going to bring it to you on the streets of Suffield, so get your popcorn ready.
That's what I'm talking about.
And the superintendent didn't like that, so they did it because they are used to doing things like that, and they are used to getting away with it, and sadly, they are used to not having a response from the people that they oppressed.
That's right.
Usually because of fear, or they want to keep their jobs, or something of that nature. And I'll be quite honest, I have little tolerance for people who get abused, see the abuse, understand it, know that it's going to continue, but will do nothing to somehow or another try to stop it. Because the people in front of you, historically and presently, they show that they're going to continue to do the same thing unless you put an end to it. So that's one thing that I can't understand that happens from time to time. But as it relates to Suffield, the people did it up there in power because they're used to doing things like that, and they're not used to getting called out on it. I'll give you an example. When they thought I was coming up there with the Self-Defense Brigade to protest in the streets of Suffield, the police chief got a call from the residents of Suffield saying they didn't want my type up there, or they didn't want people like me and others up there. And the police chief, said, hey, man can come up here if he so chooses. It's within the law. But that's the kind of arrogance that we're dealing with. And people have to be called out on stuff like that. But most importantly, something needs to be done to let those in power know that we're not going to accept this. Now, how much people are willing to sacrifice to do that is another question altogether.
Well, this raises another extremely important point, and this is to all the black and brown bureaucrats and black politicians out there. Listen to what I'm saying. I want to know why, when this event was canceled, why didn't the white state reps and senators from across the state, Matt Ritter, what happened, man? You had a chance to do something. You should have been all over this. Where was Mark DeBella? Where were these other politicians? Why weren't our own politicians, right? Where was Doug McCrory? Where's the guy that's running for mayor, right? Eric Coleman. Why weren't you outraged at this? Why didn't you have a press conference? You have the platform to do this. Where was Edwin Vargas and Minnie Gonzalez, right? Where were you in this? We need you all to step up and hold these people accountable for the crimes that they commit against our community. Stop apologizing. Stop hiding. Stop being cowards. Step up. Let your voice be heard. Say this ain't right.
Well, Luis, Brother Delgado, here's the problem. The people who are part of the political system in many cases want to remain part of the system, and to a large degree, often they are compromised. Now, I can't say everybody, but a lot of them are compromised, and they seem to be unwilling or unable to say anything or do anything because they want to be seen as part of that system.
Mm-hmm.
Peer pressure, political peer pressure.
That is what I would say. That's what I would say to that, because in Hartford in particular, especially among the black, Latino, and Latina politicians, they seem to be beholden to the white power structure.
I didn't hear that. I didn't hear that, Cornell. Can you repeat that one more time, please?
Okay, I said the black and brown and Latino and Latina politicians in Hartford often are compromised by the system that they claim they belong to. Therefore, they are reluctant to raise their voice or do anything that would jeopardize their so-called standing within their political party, because that is where they get their sustenance, their meaning, and their food, so to speak, from. It's from that particular party. I don't really know if you can operate effectively as an oppressed person within a political party, an oppressed group within a political party, because every time you seem to make some kind of gain, it's taken away. Police accountability bill went in one way, came out another way. The George Floyd bill went in one way, came out another way. So every time we are giving something, it is taken away. And so to be part of that political system and think you're actually going to make change, I don't know. It just doesn't seem to add up. 2 and 2 doesn't add up to 4, because who hold power actually take back whatever they give you grudgingly.
So in 2023, it's disconcerting to me.
I can't hear you. Speak up. Say that again.
And almost unconscionable.
Okay.
Not even almost. It is unconscionable that from 1933
yes
to 2023,
yes,
we're still dealing with the same types of
issues,
hate and viciousness enacted upon us as a group.
Yes.
Now, based on what you just said,
Yes.
the sacrifice that is required through service is not being delivered to the constituency that these politicians represent if they're being silenced.
Yes.
And that's why, brothers and sisters, Cacique has said many times on this show that I am not sure if being involved in the current political system serves our purpose. That's right, serves our purpose as black and brown people. And let me say this one more time. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Let me just say this. I'm glad you brought that up because I bring this up often with people when they look at me. The system that we currently live under does not seem to be supportive of black, brown, oppressed people, LGBTQ people, Native American women, or women, period. If white women were missing the way that Native American women would come up missing in this country, and especially in Canada, there would be a revolution. People get killed all the time by people who are supposed to protect us, and guess what? It continues to happen. The current system that we're living under, democracy, has given birth to and continues to nurture this endemic racism that we find in this country. So my question has been for a long time, after doing research and reading and other things, why do we continue to hold on to a system like Linus in the Peanuts comic book character strip holds on to his blanket to keep us safe?
I have an idea. I have an idea. So we have in Native American culture, brother. We have four healths, right? We have mental health.
Okay.
We have emotional health. We have physical health, and we have spiritual health.
Okay.
And when any one of those things are not in balance, we have an issue. So the reason that we hold on to stuff, Cornell, is because we always go back to what's comfortable, even when it hurts us.
I understand that.
Because it's what we know. So, and I often speak about this on the show, we have been socialized to speak a language of servitude, a language of slavery, a language of death, because we always have to speak up to white folk and they always speak down to us. That's how it's been. I hear brothers and sisters tell me now that down south, the expectation of a lot of them white people down there is that you can't look at them in their face when you're talking to them. That's crazy. In 2023, that's the expectation.
It seems.
I'm just telling you.
Right, but
I'm sorry, I didn't mean to laugh.
No, you should. I know, but you're laughing in a tragic way because that's what it is. It's tragic, but that's what we know, and we're accepting of that. I keep talking about accepting.
The crazy is that folk accept that
on both sides.
No.
Both sides.
No. Everyone can ask you any question that they want. It's up to you to be determined that that's not a fair question. I'm not answering it. They can have whatever expectation they want.
Yes.
For you to acquiesce is where the problem is. So to me,
there's the problem right there. Because just like they acquiesce down south to that, right? They acquiesce up here.
Well, it doesn't matter where you are.
Right. Because how in the world do we have a white mayor and a white town Democratic chair?
Well, I think
in a city that's over 90% people of color.
You should not ask that question. You should give the answer.
No, I'm asking the question so you can give the answer.
Well, you know how we have that.
Well, I know, but I'm not sure if the audience knows. So I want you to tell them.
Come on, Stan.
I think it alludes to what Cornell was saying just before, at the beginning of this thread of thought. There are those who are dependent upon the power structure for their power. Mm-hmm. And right now, the Democratic Party controls the city. Mm. You mentioned Mark DeBella is the chair of the Democratic Town Committee. Mm. And if you want to have access to the trappings that go along with party politics and the power that comes from there, including resources, money for social programs or whatever else, then you cannot upset the people who hand out the cheese. Otherwise, they'll cut you off from the cheese. So unless people have the political courage to step out from under that particular aspect of the system, then they will always be subservient to the system.
That's the key word. That's the key word, courage. And I would take political out of it and just say
courage.
Courage to declare your humanity before a hostile universe. When I was in college, I studied something called existentialism. And Existentialism 101 said that here you are, a solitary figure, standing on a mountaintop in a universe that's dark, and you're shaking your fist in a soliloquy of anguish towards the universe, declaring that you're going to make yourself known. Now, if you look at that picture, is a mountaintop a person in a dark universe, but the person is defiant. Now, can you actually make a change? It depends. But if you stand on that mountaintop and you declare yourself a human being, a sentient human being, and that you're going to be heard no matter what, then eventually whatever's in that universe is going to take notice. People don't want to stand before the powers in Hartford or white supremacy and in an existential way say, I demand to be heard, and if you don't hear me, you're not going to have any peace. And that is what I feel the Self-Defense Brigade does. We tell people when we go and protest, give us what we want, or we're going to take it, and we're going to ram their agenda down your throat and make you like it. Doesn't make any difference if you vilify us or not, or if you do stupid things like they tried to do to us last week coming from Shelton, 2 weeks ago, tried to run us into a concrete barrier on the highway. That's fine. It ain't going to stop the agenda, because the next week we were back doing the same identical thing. So my point is, if you want to change things in a hostile universe, you have to find the courage to stand up and declare yourself as a human being and fight that which oppresses you. But most people don't want to do that because it takes a certain amount of personal sacrifice, which might even include giving up your life.
And
That's right.
And therein lies the profound difference.
Yes.
Most people in Hartford are sycophants and will not lift a finger to change their circumstance. So
why holler about it, Stan,
So,
if you're
right.
not going to change it?
Right. And so and to get, and as you listen to what Cornell is saying, he's not that he needs to hear this from me or anything else, but he's been consistent as long as I've known him. He's the exact same now as he's always been. There's no expectation that the people are somehow going to wake up tomorrow and be nice. Yes,
No.
they're going to try and kill you, run you off the road, and now what? We go back. It's like the rain that falls from the sky. Expect it to rain on some days. You don't get upset because it's raining. You get an umbrella and you go on back out there. We
Right.
somehow expect, because we have a righteous cause, that the 500,000 people who are unrighteous are going to wake up in the morning and be righteous people. They are not. So the struggle never ends. It's a daily grind, and you make a difference by taking a stand. If you don't want to make the sacrifice, you
Don't
give
go
in.
out there.
And right. And so that's what you have in Hartford. No one wants to make a sacrifice. This is not rocket science.
Well, and
Cornell, I
so
have a
for
question, right?
Yes.
So in the fifth grade, I was attending Rawson Elementary School in Hartford. I'm
Okay.
Hartford born and raised. And we used to stand to say the Pledge of Allegiance. Now, I want to say within the past 10 to 15 years, I started noticing that in those lyrics, they say that we, to the republic in which we stand.
One
so,
nation.
keyword republic. Can you give me this definition or compare and contrast republic versus democracy that we always hear about and talk about?
Wait, say that last part again.
So to the republic in which we stand is in the lyrics, right?
Yeah.
So if we're standing for the republic, quote unquote, and we always talk about and promote democracy, what's the difference between those two?
Well, I'll be honest. Let me do it this way. Democracy is something that supposedly was created in Athens. People with one voice wanting to change something or presenting a law. If my Greek is just sufficient, demos, people, and kratin, power, people power, is what democracy is supposed to be about. But in reality, America is an oligarchy, which by definition means representation or rule by a few, and that's usually the people with more money and more power. Now, that's how I understand democracy. The republic of which you speak has always been a mystery to me because the definition keeps changing. So I'm not quite sure how to answer that part about a republic, but I do know this. There is no such thing as a democracy in America. People are being bamboozled and fooled into thinking that there is. There's only an oligarchy, but we keep presenting the issue that this is a democracy. And if we are living under a democracy, then it's not working for us. And as Stevie Wonder said in his song, ain't no use in us trying to sit down, trying to work our problems out. We both know the truth. There ain't no use. Each other we must do without. And that's how I feel about democracy. Now, republic, I'm vague on because it keeps changing. Okay. So you got to explain that one to me.
Well,
the definition.
Well, brother, according to the Merriam-Webster's.
Uh-oh.
Now, how you going to read out of a Merriam-Webster dictionary when you know that has nothing to do with us?
Well, hold on. Wait a minute. I want to make a point here. That's why. I want to make a point.
Well, they got the dictionary on. Yes, sir.
A government.
Let's go, Kasike.
A government having a chief of state who is not a monarch and who is in modern times is usually a president. So you can have.
That's democracy?
That's republic.
Oh, okay.
That's a republic, yeah.
Yeah, republic. So we do have.
Well, we have a representative republic.
We have somebody who's not a monarch. So that qualifies us as a republic because he's a president. Okay. It's usually a president. But democracy, like Cornell says, is different. You know what I'm saying?
Democracy is a construct. It's as valuable as any other thing. I mean, it's you know.
But we don't have that either. We don't have that either.
The old Athenian model that it doesn't have any true representation in America. Right. Yeah.
And so America always looks for ways to, I call it to me politics in America is like the Harlem Globetrotters. You got to have the Harlem Globetrotters, and you have to have the Washington Capitals, the most losing team in sports. So, but they all work together. Because without the Washington Capitals, you have the Generals. I'm sorry. Without the Generals, you have you don't have a team. The Globetrotters have to play against somebody. So you have the part. That's why I say you got to free your political mind from the plantation of party politics. We are sovereign individuals who, in theory, have come together to form a representative republic. And I thought what Cornell was saying in the very beginning of the program was very, very profound. They went out. The Proud Boys was there. Went over to the Proud Boys and said, look, if you don't start nothing, won't be nothing. Then he went to the Capitol Police and the state police and told them, you all have a job to do. Your primary job is to protect us. I guess as well as the Proud Boys over there. But if you all do your job, all of us get to go home. But if you don't do your job, we will do ours. And they were good with that because those are the rules.
It was clear. It was crystal clear what we were saying. We didn't do it in a threatening manner. As a matter of fact, if you looked at the front page of the Current, I shook the guy's hand, but I told him as I was shaking his hand, we don't want any trouble. If you do this, today I solve all problems. And then I said to the black and the brown brothers, capiche? And they said, capiche. And I said, fall back. And we left the Proud Boys standing right there and wondering if we were serious or not. But you know what? They never made a move because they could not afford to find out if we were serious or not.
And to me, that's heading toward the definition of a community.
Well, that's
self-policing, and the system that is in play right now. See, the rules change every year. Every session they're getting ready to change the rules up there right now. So every session they change the rules. The rules change just like they do on a football field. Oh, you can't kick it this way this time.
Yeah.
And so it's forever changing. But the rules that are in play right now are the rules. The police serve us, not the other way around. And so when you let them know these are the rules, you tell me if I'm wrong. No, sir, you're not wrong. Right. The mayor serves us. The people at the MDC, it's a municipality. They serve us. It's not the other way around. They are not heads of state. They are elected or appointed by elected individuals. And so to me, the problem is less the rules of the game and the people who are making the rules. And on a local level, we have local rule makers. Our city council are the local rule makers. So if you have city council people who are elected to office, who serve on the public safety committee, aka chairs of public safety, they have the authority to set certain boundaries along with the mayor who's elected and hold the police chief accountable. If we don't like what the police chief is doing, after you tell the chief and he doesn't refuse to hear your issue, then he's not really the one with the problem. The mayor and the city councilors are the ones with the problem. And if they don't listen, then the real problem makers are us who don't want to make any sacrifices because we like things being comfortable, who sit idly by and allow them to stay in power.
There's one thing that you said, Stan, that is really interesting. You talked about letting the people in power know where you are and what it is that you want, and to make that clear. After Tyree Nichols was killed, we had a rally in Lozada Park, and Luis Delgado and some other people were there, and we went to the police station, and we talked to the police chief in the lobby and let him know some things about how we felt and how we expected them to act in such a way as never to have anything happen in Hartford as what happened to Tyree Nichols. Now, that was on a Saturday. On Tuesday, we followed that up. Me and one more person went and talked to the police chief and reinforced what we had told him Saturday. And you know what he said, sitting in his office? After we explained to him what we expected out of the police as a group, the Self-Defense Brigade and all of these other people and these allies that we have with us, he said, I understand. He said, I know how you guys operate. We know how you travel, talking about legal armed defense, and we are willing to listen and to try to help implement some of the things that you want, and we want to assure you that we're going to try very hard to make sure nothing like that, which happened to Tyree in Memphis, happens here in Hartford. Now, my point is this. The only reason he said that is because he knows how we've organized and how disciplined we are as a group and how we travel and how skilled and knowledgeable we are in the law. And so we have an organization or a group of people that can go to him and talk and say, here's what we expect, and have him listen and whether he actually was 100% sincere or not remains to be seen. But there's one thing for certain: he knows who we are. He knows how we travel with our Second Amendment rights. He knows when he confronts us in the community, we're going to listen, but we're not going to put up with any BS, and we stand on what we say. He said he has seen us do things over the years, and he understands who and what we are. That is what you have to start with. You have to organize the people. You have to make sure everybody's disciplined. You don't have any live wires, any foolishness as you're out there. And then you have to impress upon the police and the other organization, listen, we'll obey the law, but if you come incorrect, you're going to have a problem.
Absolutely. And to me, that is the definition of community. Self-policing or protective, self-educating, knowing what the rules are, taught by one, and self-sustaining. They don't need anyone else to sustain them. They don't need anyone else to protect them, and they don't need anyone else to teach them. They know what the rules are. And I would suggest that every community where things run right have those three basic things.
Absolutely.
Ours doesn't. Our community is sustained by the political class that gets elected to office, that runs down to the Democratic Central Party headquarters or up to the state that needs those dollars to support programs because they're dependent on them. The education system teaches your kids whatever you want. I mean, whatever they want, that perpetuates keeping you in a state of, human cotton. You know, you don't need to grow cotton. We're the cotton. And they make money off of us. As long as they keep us fed, they're going to make money. And then they have the overlords and the overseers and the Uncle Toms, the Uncle James, this, that, or Auntie James, whatever you want to go, all to keep us in place. And then they get their return on investment on election day. They take us off the shelf. We come out in buses and we go vote them right back in, and we go back on about our way. None of that will change until you have people willing to make sacrifices. In the early days, the community had lots of people like Cornell. Now he's a lone man trying to make a difference. And so people talk, but they don't girl up, boy up, man up, or woman up. They talk, and talk is not change. Action is change, and the action has to be backed up with what are the rules? They changed these rules last week. Everybody get on board with the new rules. You can't be mad because the rules change, because they're always going to come up with a way to circumvent what you're doing.
Well, yeah, and you know what? It's interesting you said that about actually doing something versus talking, because the old revolutionary Che Guevara said this: words are beautiful, but action is supreme. And when you talk about people in the past sacrificing, doing things, trying to make a difference, a book that illustrates that perfectly was given to me by somebody. It's called The Warmth of Other Suns, S-U-N-S, by Isabel Wilkerson. And it's about the story of America's migration. People from the South coming up to Chicago, St. Louis, East St. Louis, Detroit, where I grew up at. And you can see in this book the sacrifices that people made and how they fought in the South and how they fought in the North. I lived in Detroit at a time when people came together and fought because we lived in an all-black community. See, you couldn't go outside of the black community into the surrounding white community, so we were all in the same boat together, and we fought together. And this book, The Warmth of Other Suns by Isabel Wilkerson, about 400-some pages, is a perfect illustration, Stan, of what you're talking about, the sacrifices that people made. Now, I listened to my grandparents from Georgia and other people in that black community talk about things that happened in the South in the 30s and 40s before I was born. However, they talked about specific incidents that caused them to leave the South. This book connects all the dots and shows the invisible hand of racism in the South that maneuvered these people's lives and what they had to do in order to make change. And that concept of making change seems to have been lost because we've been blinded by other things. No matter what we achieve, no matter how far we go down the road in America, we have to understand something. As one person wrote, the sun rises and the sun sets on our blackness. No man or woman escapes this blackness. From the first cry at birth to the last sigh of death, black we are, and black we shall be. And that is what I remember all the time as I'm out in the community. I can't escape this blackness. I'm going to be black 7 days a week, 24 hours a day. It condemns me, so to speak, in this country. I have no choice but to fight, and that's what I tell our white allies sometimes, who seem to think that they can fight when they want and then go take a break and come back and fight again. Well, I can't take no break.
Right.
That's my privilege, Cornell. That's the privilege that we keep talking about.
But it is what it is. Would you give up your privilege?
If you are real, if you are
given up
concerned,
my privilege.
if you are concerned about this and you're white, then you need to step into it with both feet. And Luis and I have talked about this. We have had serious discussion within the movement of black people and brown people who are oppressed, whether we should allow whites to work with us. We've had serious discussion because
in leadership, Cornell.
It seems as if a lot of our white allies, not all, but a lot of them seem to think that they can jump in this thing and jump out when it suits them and come back in 2 months, come back in 3 months, come back, But Luis and I and you, Stan, and other people, we don't have any choice but to fight 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. And we've had serious discussion whether we should keep working with white allies or just thank them for their service and tell them to go on, as Bobby Blue Bland said, further on down the road.
Well, that's a great topic for the next time, since our time is winding down.
Yeah, you're gonna need 3 hours if we bring that up with Luis.
That's a great.
That's right.
That's
I'll be all over that.
A great off ramp that we have to have that discussion, because it's been one that is been present in recent weeks with an organization that I'm affiliated with.
It's only part one.
Yeah. Just part one, but we'll continue this.
Thank you.
We'll
for
continue
having me.
this conversation. Thank you for being with us, Cornell.
Yes,
Thank you for having me. I enjoyed it, and this time passed by real quick.
Yes, it did.
Oh yeah. We'll do it again real soon.
Okay.
All right.
And real quick, Stan, I just want to tell everybody that we are completely and blessed and fortunate that we have some incredible black and brown leadership, mostly men and one female. I'm going to mention them all, that are taking care of our children as head coaches of the respective programs. And the first one is Ismael Caro. He's over in Cheney Tech.
Okay.
Leo Ramirez is over at Weaver.
Weaver, yes.
Walden St. Just is over at Buckley.
Buckley, yes.
And Leo's Weaver girls. Sean Smooth Bell is at Weaver Boys.
Yeah.
Derek Guys at Hartford High. And Stockton Farmer is at HMTCA. And then the young lady is Tashima Jessamy.
Yep.
And she is at Achievement First. I want to congratulate these young people. I want to thank them. I want y'all to know that the community is extremely proud of you for all the wonderful work that you continue to do. And once again, this is a great big thank you from the community. Keep up the great work. And don't forget that you have our ears. And if you're in need of some counsel, you're always welcome to reach out to any of us. Peace, family. Thank you so much. And to the Elder Cornell, brother, thank you so much for coming. It was great having you, man.
Thank you for having me. And now I'm going to get some of that Bustelo coffee that you turned me on 2 years ago.
All right, brother. Thank you,
All right,
Cornell.
we'll see you next time. Dr. Bowen.
Okay, thank you.
Yes, I want to say peace and blessings to everybody, and add The Warmth of Other Suns, SUNS, by Isabel Wilkerson to your book list. Peace.
All right. All right, my friends. We'll see you next time. You all have a blessed rest of your day. We'll see you. Ciao, ciao.